Hello, so this is my final reflective presentation video for Art 326. To start off, I'm going to be looking at my first art journal that I made in class, where I really focused on my journey thus far in education, especially in the education program at CSU, and how it's really started to make me think more about my education philosophy and what I would want to do within my future classroom, and how I really focused on student choice within their materials, as well as looking at different subject matter and incorporating other different kinds of variables into my classroom. For my second art journal, I looked at student choice. We had learned about the Reggio Emilia approach, and I was really interested in learning more about student-based choices, just because it really fosters a lot on communication and how that's really important for students to really explore and how they can do that through different kinds of communication. For this piece, I decided to focus on positive feedback and how it's really important to establish a positive feedback setting for students so that they can talk positively about the work, but also learn from their mistakes and learn more through the process of making. For this next art journal, I focused on problem solving. Many times light bulbs are associated with thinking of different ideas as well as creativity, and problem solving is very big when it comes to that, just because many times as students progress and they may encounter problems, it's important to have a positive mindset when it comes to this and understand that problem solving is just another way of learning. For this next one, I wanted to focus on the importance of using thematic ideas within the classroom and how many times thematic ideas can be too large, and how it's important to really focus in on an aspect of a larger theme in order to still be broad, but also still allow students a lot of creative freedom when it comes with that, so in order to give a lot more guidance and structure to the project. For this next piece, I decided to make a door to symbolize the importance of procedures. Within the classroom that I was in for one of my other education classes, procedures were a very big part of it, with the way that students would interact with the classroom, especially since the moment the student walks through the door, that's the time that the class really starts, and how it's important to really use every time that you have with the students in order to gain as much information that you can. For this next piece I made, it is a medicine wheel, which is very important within my culture. I wanted to do this to really reinforce one of my philosophies about culture, just because it's really important that within an art classroom we celebrate the individuality of every student so that there's validation of their identity, especially with how identity can really translate to art and art practice. And as teachers, it's really important to showcase culture, especially within the classroom, by explaining the importance of how identity really plays with a lot of different aspects within art. For this next piece I made, I decided to do a window. This was during the time when remote learning first really started, and I wanted to look at how remote learning looks, especially in the art classroom, and how different teachers are utilizing different tools in order to still have an art classroom setting, especially since art can be very tactile medium sometimes. So with that, I found out that a lot of teachers were using different online platforms, as well as the use of video tutorials and digital tools that can still have that kind of classroom effect in order to really engage their students. For this next symbol, I decided to make a cloud symbol that is important to my pueblo. I wanted to focus on this to showcase the aspect of storytelling. Storytelling is how tradition in my culture is passed on from generation to generation, and now during the time of remote learning, storytelling has become very vital, especially in the digital sense, with how teachers communicate with their students, and how it's really important to still have that face-to-face factor with students in some capacity, to still give that kind of classroom culture, as well as help with that social-emotional learning. For this next piece, I decided to make a hand. I decided to do this just because the hand can be very symbolic for reaching out, and it's very important during this time that teachers still reach out to their students in order to still have that kind of classroom culture like how I talked about in the last project. And it's really important that we still reach out to others in our community, as not only students, but as well as their families. For this next one, I decided to make a heart, which really focused on constructive feedback. And many times, constructive feedback can be seen as harsh, but it's important as art teachers that we have positive constructive feedback to students so that it still helps them learn and develop their art skills as well as their creativity, but to know that it comes from a compassionate place with their best interests in mind. And for my last piece, I decided to make moccasins from my pueblo, just because for this I wanted it to symbolize my journey through this class as well as my journey through tradition and education as well, just to showcase how the journey is never really ending, and since you're always learning and growing through these different processes of how we all learn. And with this, I wanted to really show how my teaching philosophy has really developed over this course to still include some aspects of my old teaching philosophy, but also to delve into some deeper ones that can really relate more widely to students outside of an art content. Looking at my final project, I really wanted to focus on bringing it all together to really unify the concepts of what I've learned. So my initial perspective when teaching art when I entered this course was to really focus on student creativity, like how I talked about in my first piece, but over time that has changed, just because originally I did focus a lot on student creativity, seeing what they brought to the classroom, still having positive feedback, but learning through this course has made me develop a lot more deeper ideas on how those ideas I had previously can be expanded further. So the changes that I observed from these art pieces was really that my symbols changed over time, as well as the color choices to become brighter, as well as the embroidery techniques to become more densely packed to showcase these important symbols, as well as the color choice to really showcase a lot of vibrancy when it came to certain designs to show their importance and their significance, as well as how I played with color, that I really focused the first few months of this project to have different primary colors to show that all of these were very primary aspects of what I felt was important within the art education philosophy that I was bringing up, as well as having the last two ones being the moccasins being a combination of two primary colors to show how many times philosophies can overlap, and having the green one in the end to show that there is still more to learn and to always have that space. What I learned from this reflective activity is that it's allowed me to really think about my philosophy every week that I did one of these assignments, just to think deeper about what I wanted to bring into my future classroom, and to understand that there is still so much to learn and that there's a lot that I can bring to the classroom in the future.